So the third surgery and the final surgery for us was closure. And for me, closure was interesting because I was really excited on a personal level to be done with surgeries, to be done with hospital stays. So I was always looking forward to just getting this final third surgery done. And then when we were at it, I was like really dealing with a lot of grief and sadness over the stage, which I know it makes absolutely no sense because it should be like a relief to be done with the surgeries. But for me, I think I was just really nervous about the unknown. Like, I was getting good at the stoma care and I could change her in 20 seconds flat, and I felt really confident with where we were at. But then after this surgery, the unknown was coming in again, and we were dealing with like the unknown for the rest of our lives. So right now I had that glimmer of a hope of my daughter might be one of the lucky ones, that she will have some control, that she may be able to manage with her diet, and kind of that hope. But soon it was going to be reality, and we'd be able to see exactly where she was and exactly what our situation would be for my daughter, and that was overwhelming for me. So the actual surgery itself, we checked in, and the same thing, she wasn't able to eat. I think she had to stop about 6 hours before this surgery. And then she went down and she had the surgery, and we went into the room where she woke up, and she was less sick than at closure, but she was on a lot more pain meds. After closure, she was only on the equivalent of Tylenol, but after this one, she was on morphine, and she just was sound asleep, and she wasn't ill, like throwing up like she was with the first surgery. And then we moved down to the post-op critical care. And in this area, they told us we would probably spend about 4 to 5 days on that floor, and then we would move up to post-op and probably spend in total a week in the hospital following the surgery. So the first 2 days were not so difficult. She was on morphine, she slept a lot, she was quite comfortable. She wasn't allowed to eat until she had her first poo, a real poo. And the first one came on day 3. And it was bright green and a very strange color, but at day 3 it happened. They also had this like tube, like a feeding tube, but they put it through her nose and it went down to her stomach, and it was attached to a vacuum. And this vacuum was emptying everything out of her stomach. And this is something they do to help them not to be sick from the morphine or from the anesthesia, to give their stomach time to heal from the surgery. And so she had this like vacuum through her nose, and on day 3 she started gagging a lot because of the tube, and then it went from gagging to she just became like violently ill, and she was getting sick every 20 minutes, and we didn't know. I thought it was just the irritation of the tube in her throat, but we weren't sure if it was a reaction to the morphine, if they were worried that maybe her intestines weren't waking up and her body was rejecting the surgery because she was like really, really ill. So there were a lot of more questions than answers, and it was a really hard, stressful time. And of course, she's so sick, so I wasn't getting any sleep. And the stress plus the no sleep, for the mom's aspect of the journey, it was just really hard. It was a very emotional and very tiring 48 hours. And then they decided to take the tube out of her stomach and to see if that's what was causing the vomiting, and to try that for 4 hours, and then we'd move on from there. So they did take it out, and immediately she stopped getting sick, and immediately she started perking up and getting her personality back. And so I think that was day 4 after surgery, and then day 5 we were allowed to feed her, but she really was not very interested in food. She was eating, I think maybe she took about 20 milliliters of milk for the first time she was allowed to eat. And our surgeon asked us not to give her solids. So she had her surgery at 6 months old. She was 6 months old. And we were told not to start her on solids because they wanted her to, no, she was 7 months old, sorry, and they didn't want her to be on solids until after the surgery. So she was still only on breast milk. And so she slowly started to eat, and it took us about 7 days before we actually moved back up to the post-operative floor, just because they wanted her eating like regular portions before she left to critical care. And she never really got ever, while we were in the hospital, to regular portions, but she got to acceptable portions where she was maintaining her weight, so they moved us up. And then when they moved us up, she was actually like completely healed. She was off her morphine, she was eating well, she had her personality back. She didn't seem like the stitching bothered her. She was pooping like 20 times a day, like kind of a runny, grainy type of poop. And then they decided that they would do integration to food in the hospital room. So she started fruit and vegetables, and as well we were trying to put her onto a formula milk and get her weaned off of breast milk, because I was just at that point where I had just enough to sustain her, but not like a drop more, and so we needed a backup plan in case as she grows and her needs increase, I wasn't able to do anything more than I was already doing. And so we found a formula, and then as soon as she tasted the formula, she started rejecting my milk, so I was able to stop breastfeeding, which gave me back a lot of energy, because exclusive pumping is exhausting. And so they kept us, I think, 3 days. We did different types of food, and we saw how it affected her poop, and they really wanted to take things slow with her, which I appreciated here in France. And they really gave us a good course on what it should look like and what it shouldn't look like. And by the time we left the hospital, she was having about 4 poops per day, and it was like a regular consistency. I think that's it. For this surgery, we tried to bring clothes that didn't have any elastics or anything around the belly. So she lived in onesies as well as pajamas. And one thing that really helped my daughter is we have this bear that, like, you push the belly and it plays some music, and it also has stars that light up and shine around the room. And we started using that after surgery 2 and before surgery 3 every night in her bed. And then when we went to the hospital, she really responded to that bear and that music specifically. When we put it in her crib just post-surgery, she would be like whining and showing signs that she was in pain, and then we'd push the belly of the bear, and it was almost like a hug from her mom, like before I was allowed to pick her up, where she just responded immediately and would quiet down. She also uses a soother, so we brought lots of soothers with us, because that helped when she wasn't allowed to eat and when she was in pain. And also just my presence. So anytime the doctors and nurses approached the bed in the first post-surgical critical care unit, they have to put on a blue mask and like a blue gown. And anytime she saw a blue person walking towards her, she would look for me immediately, and just with this like poor panicked look on her face. And then if I was standing right beside her, she would stay quite calm. But if I was like gone to the restroom or something, she would just like be unconsolable. So really, I saw the huge difference that a parent's presence, a mother's presence had to help her. And one of the nurses was telling me about a study that she read about babies who are burn victims needing less morphine when their moms are present than when their parents are absent. And I believed it, just seeing my daughter's response. But of course, every family is different and has what's best for your situation.